Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
I'm Mark Golub, and imagine what it would be like to have lived in Palestine in the 1940s, before the establishment of the State of Israel, after the end of World War II, during the British Mandate. Imagine both the excitement and the anxiety, maybe even the fear, with two virtual enemies, the Arab jihadists violently rejecting any Jewish sovereignty in any piece of the land, and the British aiding the Arabs in a futile effort on their part to maintain peace by instigating an illegal blockade of Jews wanting to rebuild their lives and the Jewish people after the Shoah by coming to the nascent Jewish state. It was also tumultuous times, the days of the Haganah and the Irgun, the bombing of the King David Hotel. It was modern Jewish history in the making. Well, for all of us who were not there to experience the birth of the State of Israel and the birth pangs associated with it, there is now a wonderful novel, historically accurate, that takes us into those extraordinary days and gives us a sense of what it was like to be part of those momentous events. It's entitled Lone Wolf in Jerusalem. It's published by Greenleaf Book Group Press. It's a bestseller in Israel, and in addition to its English translation, the book has already been translated into Russian. And the book's author, I'm so pleased to say, is a friend you've already met through L'Chaim, Ehud Diskin. Ehud is a Sabra, a native Israeli born in Jerusalem in 1944 into a family that goes back 7 generations in Israel. Ehud was an officer in the Israel Defense Forces, both in the Six-Day War of 1967 and the Yom Kippur War of 1973, serving as a battalion commander and then as deputy brigade commander and rising to the rank of colonel working in IDF intelligence. After military service, Ehud used his PhD in financial management from Hebrew University to go into the business world, and he was kind enough to join us when he wrote his first inspirational book entitled Yes, It's Possible. But now in Lone Wolf in Jerusalem, Ehud Diskin has penned a gripping story revolving around a character named David Grabinski, who as a 17-year-old youth escaped the Minsk ghetto, where his entire family was murdered, to join the partisans fighting the Nazis. After the war, David goes to Palestine, only to encounter the British blockade. David dedicates himself to fight both the Arabs and the British in an attempt to gain Jewish statehood in Palestine, and the story takes us into the web of intrigue and violence, which ultimately resolved with the partition vote in the United Nations in 1947 and with the withdrawal of all British troops in May of 1948, making possible David Ben-Gurion's historic pronouncement of the Declaration of Independence of the modern State of Israel. And as we tape this edition of L'Chaim, Ehud Diskin's Lone Wolf in Jerusalem has won the Canadian Jewish Book Award in the field of Yiddish and Hebrew literature, and his novel is also up for an award from the National Jewish Book Council. And Ehud, it is so wonderful to have you back at this table. Thank you for joining us, and Mazal Tov on Lone Wolf. It's fabulous.
Thank you, Mark. It's good to be here again. And I must say, you did your homework so well.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, you have to tell us, why did you decide to write Lone Wolf in Jerusalem?
It's a very good question. After I wrote my first book, my memoirs, I didn't think I will write another book. And then about, it was 2 years ago, I read a blog of an Israeli 17 years old youngster, and he wrote, I have an uncle, a general. I don't care about his stories. I don't care about Israel. I don't care what's going here. I have more in common with someone in Germany that I'm corresponding with. And I'll have the first opportunity, I'll run away from Israel. I was shocked, and I said to myself, 70 years ago, teenagers his age, what did they think? They thought how to fight the Arabs, how to fight the British, and what happened in Israel. And I say to myself, the problem is that people, they forgot about the miracle of the establishment of the State of Israel. And people, they don't read history. And I say to myself, if I write an interesting story and I put in the history here and there, I put all the history, so maybe this teenager will not read it, but people will read it and will have an interest. And this is the reason why I wrote my book.
Mm-hmm. You know, very often a first novel is in some way autobiographical. But you were 4 years old when the State of Israel was established. This is not you. David is not Ehud, correct?
Absolutely.
How did you even come up with the character of David Grabinski?
Okay, so first of all, I said to myself, I don't know if I know to write good stories. Okay, I know to write well. So I said, okay, I'll write the book and I'll show it to people. I'm not James Bond, I cannot do everything in life. And if it will be not good, I'll put it in the trash. Okay. I wrote it, and then I showed it. I went to Israel, to the largest publisher. I showed it to people that I trust and say, it's a great book. Not many people can write such a good story. And then I saw that, I realized that I am in the right way, in the right direction. I have a very good imagination. So I invented all these characters, and I saw it in my mind, and this is why today many people, they said it will be a great movie, because when I wrote it, I saw it, I imagined it, and the people, many people, when they interviewed me, they asked, did you know such people? Because it looks real. The characters, they look real characters,
right.
And
yes.
So this is the story here. And
okay, but I want to push you. First of all, does the name mean anything to you?
Nothing.
Okay, you just gave this character a name.
Nothing.
Okay. Do you like him?
Yeah, I like him. I like him because, you see, on one hand, he had to be very aggressive to fight, like the Israeli wars, like the war of the partisan. It's a right war. But on the other hand, you have to have mercy. You have to have your emotions in the right way. So, yeah, I like him.
Yes, I find him a very likable hero, although he does things which I think are going to shock the reader. And I want to begin with the very opening of the book, in which David strangles to death a British Sergeant Perry. That's basically how the book opens, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. What are you trying to say, first of all, about, it's not about simply David. David represents something in your mind. And he doesn't murder, kill an Arab. He kills a British officer, which is a theme that runs throughout this book. I want you to talk to me about what you were thinking of and why that's the way you begin the book. And then there are other questions that follow. But start there.
First of all, I had to open the book in a very strong,
yes, dramatic way.
Dramatically, and this is why I open it. Second, he said, David, in the name of the chapter, he said, kill when you don't have a choice, okay?
Which is a Talmudic principle that you quote in the book.
Yeah, I quote in the book. So, and he didn't have a choice. And David, he had a very complicated character, because when he was 17, he's telling it, he was in Belarus. So he couldn't see that when they killed the chicken, you know, and what happened after all what happened in Europe, all the killing, and that they had to fight. He didn't have a choice. He became a partisan. He became a fighter, you know. And that was say, when someone comes to kill you, you have to kill him first. You know, it's also the Jewish religion. They say
It's a mitzvah.
Mitzvah, exactly. So, and since he was 17 years old, I wanted to show also the complexity of his character. But he is 17 years old, so I brought a psychologist, you know, that she is analyzing it, and through her, you can see the problems, you know, that she's telling him, you go through the war, and she's explaining why he became this way. And also, slowly, he mellows, you know, and when he had the chance, it's another, I'm not going to tell all the book. But,
Correct.
But when there were other British soldiers, he didn't kill them. He just wounded them. And one of them that he had to take his gun, he didn't kill him. He just strangled him and left him alone. So when he had the choice, he didn't kill. And you see, maybe it's not according to all regulations that people, but sometimes you cannot use pacifism. And I'm talking about it in the book.
Okay. The reader is going to ask the following question. I understand that the Arab jihadists who were out to destroy any attempt to establish a state of Israel, they used violence, they murdered, and when you were dealing with them, the maximum from the Talmud, if someone pursues to kill you, or if there's a rodef, your responsibility is to stop the rodef, even if it means taking his life. Why the British, though? In most people's minds, the British were not killing Jews.
You know what? It's not so true. They were killing Jews, and there are stories I'm mentioning in the book that they killed. There is a movie that we made for the Israeli TV, and it was with the son of Yair Stern, that his name also is Yair Stern, and he was the head of the Lehi, which was the third underground. And specifically, the British, they shoot him. He surrendered, and they shoot him. And there are other stories about it. But also, this sergeant that was killed in the beginning of the book, he was someone that was catching Jews, and either they killed him, they killed these Jews, or put them in jail. And sometimes you don't have a choice. You know, you don't have a choice. It's not like today that in America or even in Israel. So sometimes at these days you couldn't act according to the rules.
What was your father doing during the years of this book, 45 through 47, 48?
My father was in his 40s, so he didn't fight. He didn't fight, but he was in charge of the defense, of the civilian defense. So he was going and make sure that people will comply with all the defense arrangements, etc., etc.
Was your father sympathetic to the Irgun and Lehi?
No. My parents, they were more the Haganah.
Okay.
The underground, that was the main underground, and they were more on the left side. But I want to tell you, if you're asking, that even they were this way, they saved, one day they had a tenant that he was in the Irgun. And the British came to arrest him, so they had him in the closet, and they said that he's not there. So they were also patriotic, but they were not neither Lehi nor Irgun.
Okay. As you grow up, in your parents' home, what becomes your attitude towards the British in pre-state Palestine?
I can say that it was terrible what the British did.
Explain to our audience how.
Yeah, because Jews were survived from the Holocaust. You know, they didn't have where to live. Their homes were taken. They were sick. And all what they wanted is to go to Israel to establish, to Palestine for this state, to establish a state, but even not to establish, to go. And the British stopped them. This is terrible. And sometimes they brought them back even to Germany, not just to other concentration camp, other camp. This is terrible, and you cannot forgive. And I want to say something else, that you have to remember that also America, the US, was established about the same way, you know, that they fought the British. So, same enemy. Yeah.
Uh-huh. There are those who argue that when Jews today rail against the terrorism of Palestinians, there is a degree of hypocrisy to that Jewish claim. The critics say, you know, if you look at pre-state Palestine, Jews were engaged in acts of terrorism as well. Chapter 16 of your book is all about the bombing of the King David Hotel, which is an infamous event in the history of the pre-state Palestine attempt by the Jewish people to establish the state of Israel, when the Irgun basically blew up the southwest wing of the King David Hotel, and no fewer than 100 British people involved in that headquarters died. And there's a lot of... Begin wrote a description of this in which he said, we tried very hard to warn the British to evacuate the building. And in your book, David becomes part of the warning, the attempt to warn the British, and they don't listen to him, and ultimately he's sort of taken by surprise. He doesn't know exactly what's going to happen, but he's taken by surprise when he's at a British headquarters, and then somewhere down the block, the King David Hotel is blown up, and he's dealing, it's almost like he's a secret agent at that point, dealing with the British. But there are many people who say, look at that. Look at what the Israelis did, what the Jews did to the King David Hotel. And that the Jews are guilty of, or better said, when it was in their interest, the Jews engaged in terrorism. And now that they're the victims, they complain as if the Palestinians are not the kind of freedom fighters that the Jews were during pre-state Palestine. That's the argument you hear all the time, Ehud. And your book has in it this it demonstrates this in a very real way. So I want to hear you comment on this often heard criticism that Jews shouldn't be upset with, shouldn't be morally outraged by the terrorism on the Palestinian side when they were guilty of it themselves. And not just the Irgun, not just Lehi, but it was also Haganah. They were all trying to fight both the Arabs and the British. What do you have to say?
First of all, it's a great question. And I am relating to this issue, to this question, in one of my chapters when David is sitting in the gathering of the Haganah, and someone is getting up and saying, listen, guys, I don't like all this fighting. You know, he's more like a pacifist. You say you have to negotiate, you have to talk with the British, you have to... And David is giving him the answer and what he's saying, and that I'll say what is the difference, okay? First of all, the Haganah, they have in their policy not to kill any British. You know, this was their policy. They tried not to kill anyone. Of course, there were accidents here and there, and there were operations, but this was their policy. The Irgun, tried to kill only British that they were really enemies that did very nasty things to Jews. Like, for example, they killed someone that he killed Jews and so on and so on, okay? The Lehi, it was another organization that they killed whoever they saw that is an enemy. And they were a very small minority that most of the population of the Jews in Israel didn't support them. But I want to say also the difference between the Arab and the Jews at this day. The Jews say that these days, you know what, the Arabs can live here, can do what they want, and so on. We want just a state here, and we want freedom from the British. The Arabs, they don't say it. They say at this time. I'm not talking today. I don't want to go into the politics, but they said those days, we don't want any Jew here. We want to kill all the Jews. And I want to tell you, I don't want to go too much into politics. I just was in a speech of a lady, Nuni Darwish. I don't know if you heard her name. She is a daughter of one of the head of the Palestinian in the 1950s that was like one of the killers of the terrorists that killed many Jews. And Israel tried to kill him, and in the end they killed him, okay? And she said that, I'll try to make it short, you know, it was a long speech. She said that she grew with hatred all the time. By the way, the end of, she converted to Christianity, okay? But she likes Jews also, and she said, you don't know about the Islam. You don't know anything, she said. This is a religion of hatred, and it doesn't matter. You think that only the extremists, they hate Jews and Christians. She said it's all this society. She said, like I grew up to hate Jews, to hate Christian, to kill everyone. And this is what about the Islam. And it's a big difference between what was there, you know, and what is today. I don't want to talk longer about it, but this mainly it's a big difference between the mentality and between the means and between. Of course, there were mistakes. You brought the King David Hotel. The King David Hotel, it was like a failure because they wanted to blow the building. They warned it, and they made an investigation afterwards. They called the radio. They called the French embassy that India. So they warned. So it was a mistake here. Okay, but the system was not to try to kill everyone, and there were exceptions. But here today, it's not an exception. It's a system. It's a system to kill children, to kill everyone because he's a Jew. Okay, and look at the September 11. Okay, it's a big difference. In those days, no one would do something like this. Okay, so this is my answer.
Thank you for that. Do you know who David Raziel is?
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
Tell our audience who David Raziel is.
He was the head of the Irgun at a certain time. And I want to tell you that I think his wife was our neighbor in Jerusalem.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a small. But who took more place and was more dominant, it was later Menachem Begin. That
Menachem Begin succeeded, in essence, David Raziel as the head of the Irgun.
Yeah.
But basically, Jabotinsky is responsible for the founding of the Irgun. David Raziel is a commander in the Irgun. And for a period of time, he is the head of the Irgun.
Absolutely.
And he's ultimately killed in a car in Jordan.
Yeah.
By the car's blown up. But very often you will hear people like, let's say, Peter Beinart, will say, why do the Jews take this moral stance against Palestinian terrorism when in almost every community in Israel there's a street named after David Raziel, as if Raziel were the equivalent of the Islamic terrorists who will hack rabbis with axes in a synagogue, will go into a Israeli home at night and slit the throat of a 3-month-old baby, who will blow up pizza shops and buses and discos. But the question is asked by, the point is made by a Peter Beinart. We have our David Raziel. Is David Raziel in any way, in your mind, equivalent to the kind of terrorism that Israel faces today?
Honestly, I know about David Raziel, but I don't know all the details, because I learned more about Begin, and listen, I'm sure that you have exceptions. So let's say if everything what you're saying about David Raziel is true, this was not the policy.
No, David Raziel.
Yeah.
Please understand, I did not mean this. David Raziel didn't slit the throats of children, didn't hack up Arabs in mosques, did not blow up pizza shops and buses. And it may be unfair because you don't know enough about him, but if one reads about the history of David Raziel, there is no comparison between what Raziel was and what he stood for as compared to what the terrorism that is inflicted upon the state of Israel today. In addition, it comes back to a point you made a moment ago, but the reality is, and I want to hear if you agree with me, David Raziel was protecting the Yeshuv and the Jewish people who were only trying to establish a Jewish state of their own. At the moment, all the terrorism directed at Israel has one purpose. The purpose is to drive Jews out of the land and to end the state of Israel. Those two already are such an enormous difference in both purpose and quality that it is an outrage to me when I hear people compare Raziel in particular, or the Irgun and the Haganah in general, with the kind of terrorism that Israel faces today. You've lived this your whole life. To what extent are you sympathetic to what I'm saying? To what extent do you feel I'm missing the mark in some way?
No. I think that 100% you're right, and you hit the point. And you see, of course, there were exceptions. There were exceptions on both sides, I can say. But the policy of the Arabs was to get rid of the Jews, to kill them. Doesn't matter, children, women, old people, it doesn't matter. And I bring an example of the Hebron massacre in 1929, that they killed like about 80 Jews, neighbors, children, babies even. I don't want to tell how terrible it was in details, but it was terrible. It was terrible what they did. It didn't happen to Jews. Never did something like this. Okay, so of course there were some extreme example, but the policy was to be gentlemen. If you cannot not to kill, don't kill, and I saw it also later with the Israeli army where I served. This was a policy, and it's a big difference. And also the Jewish tradition, it doesn't learn to kill everyone, but the Islamic tradition and the Islamic religion say that for Allah, and that's what I heard from this Nuni Darwish, you can kill, you can do whatever you want, you can lie, it's another mentality. This is why we are making a big mistake always, because we think in our mentality, in our Western mentality, and we think, oh, this is also the Arab mentality. Completely not, okay? And if people want to learn more, they should read. She wrote like 4 books, this Nuni Darwish, and they will learn more from someone that knows about it.
What's your response to Dear Yassin?
Dear Yassin, I want to tell you something that I was. We made an Israeli movie for a TV, and one of the people that it's on our website. Our website of the book is www.lonewolfinjerusalem.com, and this movie we put it. It's a 15. It's on the homepage, 15 minutes movie, and one of the people that was in the movie, he was a Lehi fighter. And he had a very interesting story that he was like in the Haganah, and the Haganah sent him to the Lehi to be a spy. It's an interesting story. And when I brought him to his movie, and he fought in Deir Yassin, this is why I'll come to the point. And I organized. He was in his late 80s, and he unfortunately died a few months ago. But when I told him, I organized that he will come for the movie to Jerusalem, and I told him we will talk about that you were a spy. It's an interesting story. He said, I'm not coming. So I said, why? He said, because I don't want to talk on TV that I was a spy. I said, come on, it was 70 years ago. Are you afraid that someone? So he canceled it. He came to his house, and we didn't talk about that he was a spy. So he was in Deir Yassin, and he told me specifically, to me, I'm saying now, that it's all stories and all lies. It was not a massacre. Mm-hmm. It was just the Arabs, they exaggerated, and they told like it was a massacre. They want to show how cruel the Jews are. The Jews were happy and also said, okay, because they want the Arabs will be afraid and run away. So all the Deir Yassin massacre is just a propaganda from both sides. Mm-hmm. It was not, and I read about it also.
Yes, and by the way, if any of our viewers want to get insight into Deir Yassin, they should read Begin's account of it in The Revolt. Deir Yassin, by the way, is this event that takes place. It's an Arab village overlooking the Jerusalem road that connects Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and was basically cut off by the Arabs during the War of Independence. And there was an attempt to free the Jerusalem road. And Deir Yassin was one of the Arab villages that overlooked the road, and they were shooting from here. And there was an operation in which the Irgun went in and was trying to take out the snipers who were there. And then there was all kinds of messes occurred. But the question is, did the Irgun go in and massacre women and children at Deir Yassin? And this has been one of the things, again, critics of Israel have always cited. And what Begin says is the story was never a massacre. And what you're saying is this Lehi spy from the Haganah spy inside Lehi also said to you the story was way exaggerated.
Listen, he was there. It's not that it's not propaganda, and he told me specifically. He didn't have any interest, you know. Yes. He, by the way, he studied in Jerusalem in the same school, Ma'aleh. It was a religious school that I studied. He was older than me. But this is the reason why he gave me the honor, and in the end he agreed to come to this show, to this movie. But he didn't have any interest. He was there, he was a witness, he joined it, and yeah.
One last question on this British thing.
Sure.
Have you received criticism in Israel for the fact that the Lone Wolf in Jerusalem really tries to show the reader how the war was not simply against the Arabs, but it was against the British as well. And so the British become the bad guy in a way that many people who know Jewish history, especially in post-League of Nations, there's a lot of hard feelings about the British. But you make the British the enemy here. Have you taken any criticism for that?
I got criticism from my editor. He is one of the best editor. And he told me, listen, why are you so tough with the British? See, they built a lot of stuff here. They did well, go to Israel. I say, they had an interest. They didn't do it because they love Jews. And I said, but you cannot forgive to people that about the Holocaust, that people that survived the Holocaust, they didn't allow them to come, and I'm sorry. It's no forgiveness to this, and they were the enemies. They were the enemies, okay? It's, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, and they were also, they killed Jews at this, again, it's, luckily they were not the Russian, you know, in Israel, neither the French, otherwise would be another story. They were more gentlemen, but even they were more gentlemen, they were very tough, they were very bad.
So in general, how has the book been received in Israel?
The book, after 2 weeks, to my surprise, it became a bestseller, and people, they say that I'm not aware what an exception it is, and for the whole year it was in front of the stores, and I was in the TV, in the radios, and the media, in the newspaper, so it was so successful. Even when I went to pay to buy something like office supply, and I gave my name, say, oh, you are the one that wrote this book. So it was because people, they learned the history. They were not aware. Many people, they were not aware.
Isn't that interesting? Israelis were not
Yeah.
aware, yes?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It's possible because what I say, this is the reason why I wrote the book, because they don't read history. And
it's not taught in Israeli public schools?
yeah, they teach, but do I know? It's a fact. It's a fact that people don't know. With your permission, about knowing, if I can read to you an email
I would love it.
that I received. The book was also translated to Russian.
Yes.
And it was you know, by a good translator. Nathan Sharansky wrote an introduction, a very nice introduction to the book. He read it. So if I can read it.
Please do.
Okay. Dear Ehud, my name is Ksenia. Couple of weeks ago, I have been to the representation of your book, Lone Wolf in Jerusalem, that took place in Babel, Tel Aviv. I bought the book that day, and you even signed it for me, which I appreciate a lot. I read this book in 2 days, thanks to espresso and sleepless nights, but did not want to bother you with my letters. Meanwhile, I'm still under great impression, and that's the reason why I cannot help writing you a letter of thanks. Despite the fact that this is not a book of history, it helped me to put everything in its place and forced to change my point of view to Israel itself. The miracle of the fact that the state appeared at all the difficulties, losses, and pain people had to go through in order it to happen. It's not that I didn't know it before, but the book touched some deeper layers of my soul. I went through thousands of emotions while reading those pages, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. It was great. Best regards, Ksenia.
That's lovely.
So this was the reason why I wrote the book. And
doesn't it make you feel wonderful?
It makes me feel good that people are impressed.
Well, kol hakavod. Do you think in any way David, the main character, represents something about yourself? You were a fighter. You were in both wars. At one point, you disobeyed an order, which was wonderful. It turned out wonderful during the Yom Kippur War. You were not afraid. You were then in Israeli intelligence. My guess is, had I known you when you were a young man, you were a strong young man who did what he had to do. At the same time, there is a very sensitive side to you. Do you see yourself at all in David?
In some way, yes. But you see a lot of actions, like I thought like, he was like saying, like a James Bond, what I would do in this situation. And there were certain situations, like for example, they took the uniforms of a German patrol, and they pretended, and then later I read, I was not aware of it, that when the Etzel attacked the Ramat Gan police station, they put British uniforms. So I tried to imagine what I would do in certain situation, and also for the other characters, I went into the characters and I thought, if I would be this character, what I would do. So in every character, of course, I couldn't go into to be Shoshana is a romantic.
Let's talk about Shoshana for a moment. Shoshana is the love interest for David.
Yeah.
First of all, you write a passage where Shoshana, she's a survivor herself.
Yeah.
She comes to Israel. David he falls in love with her. And they haven't had sex. And one night, Shoshana says to him, I want to go home with you. Gets into bed with him, asks him to make love to her. And while he does, he notices it's almost like she's totally passive. After they finish making love, she gets up, leaves, and goes home, and she insists on going alone. I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I thought it was a wonderfully written passage. I said to myself, how in the world did Ehud Diskin come up with that image? This is a novel. This is a story. By the way, it is a historical novel. When the writer in Russian writes to you that it's not history, the whole book is an attempt to show us the history, and it's accurate, correct?
Absolutely accurate.
Okay. But I'm thinking to myself, that's not about the scene, this love-making scene. And throughout the book, there is a very lovely arc to the relationship between David and Shoshana. I will not tell the viewers how it comes out. But I want you to talk to me about this character that you developed out of whole cloth. I was thinking to myself, is there any of Ehud's wife in Shoshana? How did you come up with that passage where Shoshana makes love the first time passively? Yeah. You don't mind my asking you this question?
No, of course, you can ask everything. It's okay. It's legitimate. Listen, when I was very young, I was in my 20s, I had a girlfriend that she had the same problem with sex, okay? And I'm intuitive in some way. So I asked her, did someone try to rape you? She was surprised, and yes, it was. So again, it's far away. It's from the both characters, but yeah, I wrote also from my experience
of course,
in the army, and my experience with women. So.
Anyway, I want you to know I love Shoshana also. I love David and I love Shoshana.
But I want to mention about Shoshana something.
Oh, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, you see, in the Hebrew version. Maybe I'll do a short introduction. I did to the book. It was my translator was okay from Hebrew to English, but I needed afterwards to do. I did 3 editing, because I'm a perfectionist. I wanted it to be a good book. And when I came to Greenleaf, they said, "Oh, you need a new editing." And I said, "What? I did already 3 editing." So I chose a certain editor. I didn't have a choice. I say, if you don't want, goodbye, and I wanted them. And this editor, Tess Mallory from Texas, she did such a great job, and she told me about Shoshana. She said, listen, you know what, it's not women in America, okay? Because in the Hebrew version, Shoshana all the time said to David, be careful, be careful, be careful, okay? And that's it, okay? And it's also interesting and so on. So she said, here in America, women are not just say, be careful, be careful. You have to do something with her. Okay, I have to do something. So I built her, that slowly she built up her personality.
Yes.
And in the end, she becomes even a fighter.
Yes,
right. In the last operation, she's shooting already.
Yes.
So this is about Shoshana. And I must say, that also my wife Miri, she also helped me with Shoshana and character. You know, she added few things to her character.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. All right. So I can't have you here. You know, look, you are a recognized Israeli military expert. You're an intelligence expert. Before you went into business, you were a ranking officer in IDF intelligence. And you said before you don't want to get into politics. I don't need politics, but I do need you to give me a sense of where you, as you look at the conflict in the Middle East, most specifically the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Ehud, do you believe that there is a Palestinian leadership that wants to make peace with Israel and create a two-state solution?
I don't believe that someone can make peace with Israel, and I'll explain to you. It's very simple, okay? Because we are lying to ourselves, and we want peace, so we said, yeah, let's have peace. And why? Let's take, I'm not talking about the Hamas in the Gaza Strip, that they are very extreme, but let's take about Abu Mazen and the PLO. You see, they cannot give up. Any Palestinian leader cannot give up that the Arabs will go back to Israel. You know,
they demand the right of return.
Right of return. He cannot give up, because if he will give it up, he will be executed next day. He will be killed. He will be murdered.
By whom?
By his people. By his.
By Palestinians on the West Bank or by Hamas?
By Palestinian, even on the West Bank. He cannot do it. He will be. Let's say rejected. A disaster. They will not. He will not be the leader anymore. That will be the best, but there is a good chance he will be assassinated. So he cannot give it up. He cannot give it up. Can Israel agree that the Palestinian will come back and so on? You know what they cannot agree. Not any Israeli leader. So, in my eyes, there is not any solution here. Not to every problem you have a solution. What is the solution? Although we are talking about the deal of the century and the most difficult deal, you can make some arrangement. You know, you have to give to the Arabs to live in honor, to live in peace, to be nice to them, and this is always be nice to people. I also, when I was a fighter in the army, I always try to be a gentleman in the war, but honestly, I don't see any real solution, real solution, because both leaders cannot make a solution. What? Also, Bibi with his Benjamin Netanyahu with his right-wing coalition. He has a problem.
But that could change. In Israel, it could change. There could be a labor government, a left-leaning government. Would it change the dynamic?
Yeah, it will be on unless there is a small party that are very on the left, like Meretz, but they are minority. Even the Labour Party, they cannot. So much they can make compromises. You see, Ehud Olmert, that was a prime minister. He gave to Abu Mazen so much. I don't think anyone will give more than what he gave. And of course, they say today we could have an agreement. They won't. He rejected it. Look, Ehud Barak offered to Yasser Arafat so much here with Clinton. He rejected it. He rejected it because he cannot accept it. And you know what Ibn Evan said? That the Palestinian never missed an opportunity to miss the peace. And that's a problem. I'm sorry about it, because I was in wars. It's better not to fight. It's better to have peace. But let's be realistic.
Your point is very well taken, and I want to just point out to you, it misleads American Jewry to talk about Netanyahu, as if Netanyahu were not the prime minister, there would be a difference. What you've just said is very important. It's not about the Israeli prime minister. It's not about a left-leaning government or a right-leaning government. The reality is you have a position on the other side which says, at best, we want a right of return. The worst is we don't want any Israel at all. And I don't know if tomorrow an Israeli government said, okay, as many people as you want, Palestinians can come back to Israel, which would mean the end of Israel also. But if they said it, would the Palestinian leadership say that's good enough? Or would the Palestinian leadership still demand an end to the state of Israel?
I think they are not so stupid. They will do it by stages, you know. And in my eyes, they are stupid these days because they could do it in stages what they want to reach, you know. I'm saying on their behalf. You see, there's a difference between the Jewish cop, I'm sorry to say, and the Arabic cop. Because look at the 1947, you know, Ben Gurion, he was smart. He said, I'm ready to take a divided small Israel, you know, and later see what happened. So I think they are stupid, and in some way, I'm glad that they are stupid, you know, because they want to take over. You are right, okay? They want to take over. We see all over the world, and you see, to be a pacifist and to be like, sometimes you are naive, okay? Of course, it's better peace, it's better not to fight, but you have to be also practical. And their aim, and I was talking with Arabs, I was talking with people, they don't, when I studied in the university, I spoke with students, and they were not very extreme. So they told me, it belongs to us. I said, where? I said, we are here in West Jerusalem. Does it belong to you? Yes, everything belongs to us. That's what they believe. You took it from us, okay? So it's hard to make peace. And people, they are good people, also here in America, there are some in Israel too. Of course, they want peace, they want not to fight. Everyone wants it, but be realistic. You know, you don't have a partner. Look in Europe. Look in Europe that France and Germany made peace, okay? They were fighting so hard, and with all the other countries in Europe. Why? Because they are all Christian. And it's a big difference that people are not taking into consideration. Here you are dealing with Islam, and Islam has another mentality, and people that they said, oh, we can make peace and so on, they should learn about Islam and they see what is the problem, like making agreement, okay? Making agreement. I don't know if you are aware that Muhammad, okay, he wanted to, he was fighting when he began his journey. It was a city, I don't remember the name, Hudera, maybe it's wrong. And he made peace with this city. And he made an agreement for 10 years. After 2 years, he attacked this city, killed people, and he fought, and they asked him, you made an agreement. He said, at this time, it was convenient to make an agreement, and this is how we should act. But for Allah, for we can break the agreement. And something that not many people know, when Arafat made the Oslo agreement, there were many Palestinian leaders that were upset with him. And they said, what did you do? How do you make? He said, you remember Muhammad with, like,
Hudaybiyah.
I made an agreement.
Yes.
Listen, it's not a coincidence that Iran, that also it's a Muslim country, Shiite, they made an agreement for 10 years at Obama time. It's not a coincidence, okay? Because it was convenient, and it's another mentality, you know. In America, you shake hands, you make an agreement, okay, you fulfill it. So people, they are not aware, they are naive, they mean well, but I'm sorry, it's not the real world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You are wonderful. I love
Thank
it
you.
when you come here. I know you're in LA, but anytime you're in New York, I hope you'll come and we'll continue the conversation. Kol Kavod on a wonderful book.
By the way, it sells on Amazon,
Jewish
Barnes and
bookstores,
Noble.
Amazon. You can buy Amazon. You can get Kindle. The
Barnes
book is
and Barnes and Noble.
And yes, and you're going to be very kind with this book for us. I'm going to tell everybody about it. But Torah Rabba Kol Tu V'Hatzlacha.
Can I say something
Absolutely.
else? I am giving my royalties in Israel, for example, I gave to, and I got a lot of royalties to educational institutes. Also here, I donate from my royalties. Thank God I am a businessman, I am in a good situation financially. You are a non-profit organization,
Yes.
can I donate $1,000 from my royalties to your TV?
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. I am most grateful. Thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome.
You're always welcome here. You come back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Ehud Diskin, author of Lone Wolf in Jerusalem, published by Greenleaf Press, available in Jewish bookstores and on Amazon. And I am so pleased to tell you that Ehud Diskin, in addition to making a gift to JBS, is also making a gift of his superb novel, Lone Wolf in Jerusalem, to any of you who can support JBS with a tax-deductible donation of $180 or more. And Ehud Diskin will personally inscribe your copy of his book. It's a wonderful gift for someone you love and for yourself. Of course, as always, I hope you'll be in touch with us with any thoughts or comments you may have to this edition of L'Chaim with Ehud Diskin. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook page, or tweet me. I always enjoy hearing from you. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. L'Chaim, my friends, to life.
L'Chaim is a presentation of Jewish education in media.